Welcome to Rising Goddess Radio. I'm your hostess, Michelle Torrance. I created Rising Goddess Radio to be a space where we dive deep into our spiritual, emotional, and physical bodies. We're getting real and connecting with ourselves in the most intimate ways. We'll be talking all things sacred sexual, relationship building, and womb healing. We'll be learning how to connect with our bodies through learning the language it speaks, how to use our sexual and sensual energies to create, manifest, and heal our lives. This show is about healing the chaotic feminine and toxic masculine within to create a world that responds to the divine and healthy energy you chose to tune in, tap in, and turn on. We will learn from amazing humans who take time and share their wisdom and sacred healing magic, rising humans who are here in this world to be healers, teachers, guides, priestesses, warriors, and shamans. All divine sisters and brothers in rising. We'll get witchy, sassy, sexy, and saucy. We're going to talk all things that align us with our true nature and authentic selves and create a community that expands with the ascension and growth of each of us. So grab some green juice, light some cannabis, get your blankets, or sit by the pool because we are about to rise up another level together. Catch you on the inside, dolls. Hello, my beautiful humans, and welcome to this next episode of Rising Goddess Radio. This episode is such a fun episode. My guests today were Denny and Una. Excuse me. And Denny and Una are amazing human beings, and they work with energy in such a variety of unique ways. I've known them, Una, for a few years through social media, and I've watched both of their evolution and their rising and their transcendence and their ascensions and all of these amazing things about them. And I wanted to bring them on the show to talk about twin flames and their process of their relationship and how they came to be who they are right now and how they help the world. So if you're not familiar with Denny and Una, they, like I said, use a variety of different modalities on energy work. Denny and Una can translate vibrations and aid in transmuting and moving through stagnant energies that are no longer serving you. They both bring their many years of experience as intuitive coaches to aid others in breaking out of the bondage of what holds them back. They offer healing from abuse, addiction, destructive behaviors, anger, resentment, and many other spiritual maladies that keep us in bondage, stunt our growth, and hinder you from achieving your highest divine purpose. They do work together, and together they have made it their life mission to help others resolve spiritual conflict and help pave the way to a spiritual awakening. Their work is focused solely on the self-mastery of the mind, body, and soul, and their goal is to help you truly understand and realize that all of life's troubles are internal and must be understood holistically, with the primary focus being on the internal condition of the individual. It's not only when this reality is understood that true healing will take place and meaningful changes will begin to unfold, but that's where the magic happens. And the process is magic. Una and Denny would be honored to assist you in this process. And in the show, we talk about how you can get a hold of them and talk with them. And, once you hear them and feel their energy through the show, you're just going to fall in love with them just like I did. So every time I get on the mic, ladies and gentlemen, something tries to hop in my throat chakra to prevent me from talking to you. So we're going to push right through that. And in the meantime, we're going to hop into this episode. So I will catch you in there. Later. Hello, my beautiful rising humans, and welcome to this next episode of Rising Goddess Radio. We have beautiful guests on the show today. I have been asking Una Grace to come on the show with me for a while. We have a beautiful connection. It's interesting, the connection that we have. We'll have particular thoughts, like she'll pop up on a live and then I'll say something and she'll have a connection, and then all of a sudden we have this idea and then we're aligned, and it's just this beautiful like sparks of alignment and connections that pop through. So I've been wanting her and Denny to be on the show. Reason being, as you heard the intro, is that twin flames is something that I'm very familiar with Sean and I finally understanding and realizing through our 20 years of growth, that we are twin flames. And so being able to communicate with healthy, aligned, beautiful humans about this conversation, I'm super excited about. So we'll get cosmic-y, we'll get witchy, we'll get sassy. We're basically going to do everything that we do here on The Rising Goddess. So, Una Grace and Denny, welcome. Thank you so much for being on here.
Well, thanks for having us. We're super excited to be here.
Yay! I ask all of my guests one question at the very beginning. So the question that I ask for both of you guys can do it independently, separate, however you guys want to choose. What do you love about being a human right now in this time and space?
That's a good question, because we have actually been discussing that quite a bit lately, because for the past 10 years of our union together, we have been trying to achieve some level of spirituality, some level of consciousness that we just feel like we need to be there, and we keep pushing ourselves to be there. And it just hit us probably just about a week ago that we are already spiritual beings, that we are learning how to be human.
Yeah.
And we're learning how to have this human experience and how to flow in this 3D world with other human beings. And that has actually helped raise our consciousness to the level we were trying to achieve by trying to shed our humanness.
Yes.
So it's actually a really, really cool question to start with, because that's exactly where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think that, the most exciting thing in our lives for sure right now is possibility. Just realizing that's what we've learned so much in these past 10 years or so, just with our awakening, is that so many things are possible. And you don't know what's on the other side until you start walking.
Yes. Absolutely. I love that. And it's so true, because I think so many of us, as we start to get into the idea, or people are talking about being woke, which we won't go into that word itself, but however, they talk about this, but they try to seek something other than what is already within them. And the fact is, you're right. We are energetic spiritual beings coming here to co-create and live a human existence life. And by always trying to shed our humanness, we're not actually partaking in the actual experience of our existence here, right?
Right. It's almost like you have to reach this level of spirituality to realize that you have to go back to being a human so you can learn how to be the best human that you can be. But you have to reach that level of like spiritual first before you can understand that.
Yeah. So it's a journey, and it's a spiral, right? We start at one part and we spiral our way up this ascension path, only to find ourselves back where we originally started. So it's just this cosmic, multidimensional beautifulness. And the best part of being a human is all of this amazing 3D human stuff that we get to engage in. No more are we victims to being empaths, or victims to being the runner or the chaser in the dynamic of twin flame. We're no longer in the psychological trap of having to be a certain something at a certain point, right? It's about learning how to go in a Walmart and not let the energies bother you, right?
Yes.
It's about having, if you have to take up an extra job for extra income so that you can, have that energy exchange to pay the bills or have the luxuries you want, how to coexist with people that are not on your same wavelength of thinking. And all of those little things that I feel like when you are trying to achieve some level of consciousness, you really miss the boat on the sweet spot of humanity. And that's what we came here to do. Our souls have already experienced so many levels and higher dimensions of other things, or else we wouldn't be here in this human form. So we clearly need to be here to learn how to be human.
Yeah, because there's so much dialogue about, all the spiritual awakened people wanting to go live on communes by themselves, which is great. You know what I mean? I understand that for sure, but it is more about getting out into the world and sharing yourself, being an example in any way that you can. And it doesn't always look the way people think it's going to look.
I love that you brought that up, because I was just doing, I was studying the Empress Yesterday I was talking with my husband about the reading. I do daily readings and see how he can contribute to our shared desires for that day, what action steps would be aligned for him, how I can help contribute to his growth. And the Empress came up, and the description of what I was reading as I was doing research based off of different combinations of the cards, it was the essence is what we're looking for. The essence in what we're looking for is the feeling, the tone, not the specific form we expected to manifest. And that's why I love that you just said that, because we go out with all of these expectations. We have this idea, this outcome that we want to reach, but we're so tied into the actual outcome that we don't really pay attention to the feeling that we want to actually receive from that outcome. And so we get so detached on all of that, how things are supposed to be, the expectations of manifesting and what it's supposed to be.
Right, which stops the very process of manifestation.
Exactly.
When you're trying to create that exact thing you're looking for.
Right. Mm-hmm. And being able to understand how to actually tap into the feeling, because again, we're energetic beings, we're emotional beings, emotion, energy in motion. And for us to be able to continue to maintain that flow, it is a matter of stopping any expectations, because an expectation instead of an acceptance, right, is that block, right? That's what my husband and I talk about a lot. Not expectation, but accepting. I caught some of your live this morning, and you were talking about expectations or outcomes and detaching from outcomes. So let's kind of start to dive in with the twin flame and the beginning. First of all, share with us, who was Una Grace and Denny before 10 years ago? And what was your, I know this could be hours, but we're going to have to condense it. This is a totally cosmic conversation. So we'll cliff notes it, right? Who were you as humans in that moment before you guys started to go through your growth to bring you to who you are now in this moment as humans?
Well, our very first concert that we saw together was 1996, Marilyn Manson.
Oh my gosh.
So,
okay.
So we can start there.
All right.
That gives you a little idea where we were.
Yeah, that's where it all began.
You know, where we were kids. We were 18 and 19 years old, and we were young and free, and, you know, hadn't really gotten into some of the karmic patterns, hadn't yet quite developed yet. So, you know, when we very first met, our courtship was really quick, really fast, very harmonious. We had a very loving, just a very amazing flow about our relationship. We did the things we wanted to do, which were similar. We had similar interests, all of that kind of stuff. So we just really flowed. There wasn't really time. Our courtship was, you know, about 9 months, which is really poetic to a lot of numerology and things that go behind behind our code system, our blueprint, right? But so yeah, it was a gestation period, you know. I mean, we were literally birthing this twin flame frequency at that time. So it set the blueprints for how things would be. There were a lot of karmic things that we had to yet do apart from one another. And so when we did split, it was a very harmonious thing. Denny was going to be traveling, and I was not able to travel at the time. And so he went to do his traveling and kind of go off on that road. And I took another road and met my ex-husband, who I was married to for 10 years and had babies and that kind of thing. And in that sort of 15-year gap that we were apart, we developed addictions to alcohol and drugs, and really started to, our karmic release began to happen, and we got very deep into a lot of our karmic patterns. So when we came back together 15 years later, we were full swing into all of that. Right. And so we can see now, looking back, that sort of gestation period was like was a real true foundation. It was a blessing to have that time together. And it really did. It was a foundational period for us to be able to build from that through all the chaotic times that we've had the past 10 years.
I can tell you, back when we first met, we went to college together, and the very first time that she walked through the door, I remember looking over my shoulder and watching her walk in. And to this day, I still have a still shot of seeing her. I don't even think she would notice me, but I saw her walk in, and I can still see a picture of that in my head. And she was the first girl I ever went up to and asked out. I mean, first before, I haven't done it since, that I ever asked out like cold. Didn't really, we knew of each other,
right?
But you know, first
he
time
came knocking on my car door. I rolled down the window, and he's like, "So, would you ever be seen in public with me?" Like, I think you're asking me out right now. I'm like, here.
I love that. Well, and it's similar because I was working at a call center when Sean came in, and I was up towards the top, and I was on the phone walking. And when he walked in, I literally felt it. I had just given up. I had been in the last boyfriend relationship that I was in. I was completely done with men. I was done with all sorts of relationships. And so I was just going to go into my chaotic femme party mode. So here I am on speed, and, I'm doing whatever because fuck everybody else. Right. So I'm on the phone and I'm talking, and he walks in, and I literally feel it. Now, mind you, at this point, his hair was long and scraggly. He bleached it because his little brother wanted to bleach his hair for his birthday. So he did it with his little brother, but they did in tone. So you've got like brassiness, long hair, and like, it was just terrible. Right. But as soon as I felt that, I was like, okay, sit him down at my chair. They sat him down at my chair. And from that point on, for about 2 weeks, he was kind of an ornery asshole, which was what I loved, because I needed the chase, because I was constantly getting that terrible chase from the toxic and the chaos coming at me. And while he was in his own toxicity, it wasn't driven from that. It was driven from abandonment and fear. And so it was coming from that place of where his genuine heart, he's had a lot of lives. And he's very tired in this life. And so we're refinding this excitement. But anyways, I'm digressing. But I was the one that asked him out. And I was like, so I became his boss that day. I threatened to walk out unless they promoted me. So I became his boss. So then ultimately I was his boss. And so I would fix his schedule to have him work the days I was working, so I wasn't alone. And we would go and smoke weed in my car, and at lunch break and everything like that. And he was just ornery. And then I told him he was coming out with me that Saturday night. It was March 16th, 2001. And he was like, okay. And I took him to a rave, because that was what I was at. I was raving on speed. I'd already given up a whole set of addictions. So I'd gone from coke and ecstasy and all of that stuff that I was doing for years, and then stopped, and then went to speed, because apparently that's what you do when you're an addict.
That's what you do.
Yeah. So he didn't know. But what I love so much about this story, and I know I kind of like digressed a whole lot, was you had this knowing, and it wasn't so much where maybe it was a full unconscious knowing, which you felt like you had, but I felt like there was this knowing, and from that moment on, there was always this like this magnetic pull that we have always had. Does that make sense? And so and so we've broken up a couple of times, so I'm going to keep going and then pop in more stories as we continue. So moving on, before I just keep talking, when you first started to go through your healing together, what was the experience like independently? Was it a rapid healing because you guys were ready to do it independently, and so you guys worked interdependently together with your healing? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I would say, first of all, like what you're saying about that bind, that magnet. Like the years that we were apart, I felt that constantly throughout that entire 15 years. There was, every time I would bring up in a conversation about exes or whatever, anytime Una's name ever came up, Courtney back then, ever came up, there was just this certain type of feeling that I had never gotten, but I didn't know what it was. And like I said, when I took that picture,
Excuse
I
me,
knew it was something, but back then I was just this young, dumb kid. And if somebody would have said, oh, that's the woman you're going to marry, I would have screwed it all up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I needed to have that experience to stay with me for those 15 years, to have that magnetism, as you were saying. And then when we did get back together, we found each other again on Facebook. Back, what year was it? 2009. I would find each other again on Facebook. And that all happened very, very rapidly. I was living in San Diego, and she was living in Utah with her children. And I flew her out to see me, and we spent a week together. And it was like this amazing,
it was like each chakra just lit up. One, it was not a simultaneous Kundalini that came later. This was more of like root chakra check, sacral check, you know what I mean? Like up the whole chakra system lit up. We felt completely and utterly just bound to one another at that point. Absolutely knew there'd be no more breaking in that. Didn't know how I was going to go back to my kids. Like, didn't know how I was going to function being separated from him. Leaving the airport after that week together in San Diego was literally like taking my arms and my legs off. It was the most difficult experience really ever. And we made it work, and it wasn't too long after Denny was out running, and, you know, he heard literally, you're moving to Utah, like you're done. And Denny would have never left San Diego who moves to Utah anyway, right?
I totally understand that.
I even said it. We used to, those Facebook things used to go around and would ask you like your name and your favorite color and your favorite this and your favorite that. I used to do those all the time. We used to send them back and forth to each other. And there were so many of them that said like, I'm never leaving San Diego. It's the best place in the world, da, 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 da. And then when, Una had left San Diego, we said, oh, we're gonna just make this happen.
Yeah, I'll just go pack up my family.
She said, I'll pack everybody up and move to San Diego. And I'm thinking like, oh, that's a great idea. They don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? I can just, but then like Una said, I was out running one day and I literally heard this voice in my head that said, you're moving to Utah. And there was no doubt about it from that moment on. I went right home and I picked up the phone and I called her and I said,
and neither of us had a spiritual awakening at that point either.
Okay.
I think that's important to know that we were not on any sort. I mean, we were still very heavily drinking. I was still popping Adderall, Percocet, oxycodone, whatever I could get, steal, or, barter with the doctor to get.
Right.
And Denny was, it was not uncommon we were just talking about this, to start our day with a couple shots of Jaeger,
Yeah.
Very functioning alcoholics, but nonetheless, very, very alcoholic and very deep in our addictions and our codependency. And
I'm glad you brought that up.
It was very toxic.
We're not cigarette smokers,
very heavy smokers, and all of that. And so, we were very toxic when we first got together. And so to answer your question about the rapid healing, yes. And since Denny moved to Utah, it has been literally, we were married 3 months later, we were already moving to Washington State. Our lives were changing and we were being moved. Yeah. It wasn't like us. It was like, what's happening? We got to quit drinking. We heard this all from Divine. You got to quit drinking. You got to quit smoking. You have work to do. And neither of us were in the spiritual realm at all, at all. And we kind of went kicking and screaming, quite frankly.
But,
I understand.
When I first moved to Utah, that first couple of months, it was like I had all this catching up to do energetically. And my body went crazy. I remember actually feeling, but back then I wasn't very expressive. I didn't know how to express myself. I
Mm-hmm.
was learning all this, and I didn't know what was happening to me, so I didn't talk about it very much. So there were a lot
Right.
of times when I would just go silent. You know what I mean? And I felt like I was having anxiety. I didn't know what it was, but looking back on it now, it was like my body catching up to where I'm supposed to be energetically in this very short period of time. And it
Yeah.
was extremely uncomfortable.
Very
Rapid
comfortable.
ascension is so uncomfortable. And I want to take a few minutes and stop and just kind of revisit a little bit, because I think it's so important to understand that that physical ascension is uncomfortable. And this is where a lot of humans would tend to run. I know myself, when I would start to feel myself moving in some sort of ascension style, some sort of closer to my alignment when I was in my chaos, then I would run, because that was so fearful. I was so afraid to actually be the truth, because then I'd have to stop doing this and stop doing that, and all of these other things, right? The addiction and all that stuff happens, all those processes and cycles and stuff. Now, I'm so glad you brought up codependency, because, when Sean and I got together, we were both in our toxic as well. Again, like I said, I was doing speed. He didn't know. I told him when we were driving back from the date, and our first date, my friends, it was a rave. My friends took me off and did an intervention at the rave. That was our first date. So he's like, he sees like these guys, like all of my friends yelling at me, and they're like talking to me, like it's loud, trying to get me to go outside. And he's like looking like, should I go down there? Is this something I need to be a part of?
Right.
And then he saw me like walk out with him, like everything was okay. And so he was like, okay, that's a great first date intervention.
Yeah.
Right. But the codependency aspect of it, I have this theory, ideology, thought process that codependency is the base vibration of the toxicity that's running through humanity, which is what we're trying to heal to rebuild humanity. And so when you guys were first going apart, because you were still in your toxic, did you feel that it was a codependency feeling of being pulled apart, like you needed to be together, or did you feel that spiritual connection of that? Am I asking that question right? Like, was that driven from codependency, or could you feel a different vibration when you guys like knew that you were going to be apart again, when you were leaving San Diego and you were at the airport and all these things like that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely twofold. There was definitely an inner knowing of, we have now energetically corded on a level that only twin flames can. So there's that. But then there's also the, oh my God, if I never see him again, I'm going to die thing. That's very codependent. And I feel like a lot of twin flames confuse codependency versus interdependency.
Yes.
And how everyone is codependent. Everyone is codependent. Even if they're not acting on it, they're still trying, because codependency for me is you are dependent on someone to fill a void within yourself that you can't fill yourself. So, or that you haven't realized that you can fill yourself. And so that codependency factor was very much there, obviously, because we were trying to fill that void with alcohol, drugs, and now each other. But there were definitely, it was a divine force moving us in the direction of serving humanity as opposed to being attached to the matrix of humanity. There was so we had to, that gestation period of us in that 9 months, we now actually may be realizing it for the first time just now, but that 9 months was the innocence of our relationship. And then the world had its way with us, and we, developed all these horrible habits and programs and all of that kind of stuff, so that we could return back to a state of innocence. And that's where we're at now, in that divine feminine energy, together, right? Learning how to balance the divine masculine and divine feminine, and what it actually means for twin flames and humans in general, right? Embodying both simultaneously, which is what we're currently going through on the planet, with being in a divine masculine energy, currently in a solar plex energy, for this whole year until 2020. So we're seeing that on the rise, where it was divine feminine and the Me Too movement and all of this kind of stuff over the past couple of years. We're now moving into what is toxic masculinity and what does it really look like? Now we're defining the masculine.
Yeah.
So that energy is out there already. It's supporting us. We don't need to do it. So any men that might be listening to the show, I really want to say that it's important for men to be able to drop their masculinity right now, because Mother Earth has you. She's got it. She's putting off a divine masculine energy on the planet right now that is supporting you in falling into your divine feminine more. So it's okay to sort of drop that divine masculine or just masculinity.
Yeah.
It's okay
Well,
to drop that right now.
Well, and I think it's understanding too, because I have been having a calling to help healthy masculine rise up myself, and by doing that, by helping women learn how to be the container to help their men tap into their feminine and feel comfortable, feel secure, without the judgment of toxic masculinity coming in through, whether it's sexual identity, whether sexual energy, orientation, all of these different things, and so I love that's where we're at right now. And it is very important to be able for men to realize that you are supported. We, as a divine feminine, collective divine feminine, we are all here fully supporting you as well. And so just as it's like it's not like the pendulum swing. I use a pendulum as a description of like when we learn something new about some sort of like we become awake to something within ourselves that we know we didn't do. So we go to this one end of the pendulum, and then all of a sudden we go to the other end of the pendulum, right? Because we're like, oh, then we're too far in this, so we need to go here, and then we finally like sink back down. What I feel like is happening right now is kind of almost the pendulum nature, but it's like we're all in that dragon boat at the carnival. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is where we're at right now. And it's that flowing container, learning how to be a flowing container, I think is where we're at right now, to fully help men rise up into that and remove that masculinity, but that toxic or that fearful or that judgment or that perspective or expectation of what you're supposed to be as a real man.
Right.
So
yeah, and I think it's important too for the divine feminine to realize that it's not really our job to help the masculine get there. I have a little bit of a different point of view. I do see where you're going, but we really just need to stay in our lane and hold our divine femininity, because we have feminism, and this might piss some people off, but we do have
I know where you're going, and I'm just going to support you 100%. Go ahead.
Yeah, because the feminists of the world are actually promoting the toxic masculine.
Yes.
They are actually operating from a toxic masculinity.
Yes.
They're going the other side of the pendulum, like you were talking about. And so really it's about softening. All of us we have all been operating from our divine toxic masculinity, because actually I shouldn't say divine toxic, that's an oxymoron, but from our toxic masculinity, because we've all been trying to fight for some sort of equality or acceptance or whatever, right? We're all trying to heal. We're in mass ascension right now as we have entered into the age of Aquarius. And so we have needed those movements. Those movements have been very profound in the progression. So I applaud anyone who's ever fallen into that mold in order to help shape humanity. But we don't need it anymore. Mother Earth 100% is supporting us in our balance. And so if we stay in our femininity, our divine femininity, and really heal the womb and heal the divine feminine within ourselves, our men will be able to fall into their divine masculine.
I love that. Yeah.
I think what's happened, like you were saying, Michelle, about the pendulum, you know what I mean? A lot of men right now in this generation, they were born masculinity. You have to look at it like we're all given tools.
Right.
Masculinity has these very strong, powerful tools, but because of the era that we were born in, the pendulum had swung a whole different way. Nobody really knew how to teach young men how to use those tools properly.
Yes.
And those tools are destructive. And so when young men got older and they began destroying things with these tools, all of a sudden you look at this behavior as masculine, as toxic masculinity, when the reality of it is a man's responsibility to understand the tools he's been given and learn how to use them properly. Because the power, the force behind masculinity is something that should never, ever be denied, should never, ever be put down, should
Agreed.
never, ever be told to, hey, just back off a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's needed, just like the power of the feminine is needed.
They're both extremely powerful and both extremely vital.
And yes, and just like the feminine,
and they can both be dangerous.
Yes.
And that's why I don't like the term toxic masculinity personally, only because I believe it's toxic behavior, whether it's done masculine or feminine. Toxic behavior is toxic behavior, and I believe the term toxic masculinity actually polarizes the issue a little bit more. And I think the whole thing is you have these two divine energies who are there to balance each other. And the reality of it is that the misconception is that balance doesn't always mean equal parts.
Exactly.
Balance,
I agree.
you have to know when to use the masculine and when to use the feminine within yourself, but also within the divine partnership. Sometimes the balance is Una giving 150% and me giving only what I can, and then vice versa. There's the balance right there.
Point.
So you can find that homeostasis with each other.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to repeat that again, because this is something what I love so much about talking with and just having these cosmic conversations is that, even my own perspective has shifted just a little bit on the wording and the verbiage of how I utilize it, which being able to go ahead and help rebuild humanity, because ultimately I am still partaking and contributing to the polarization of it by saying toxic masculinity versus, and I say chaotic femme because that's how I have been able to, as a human, label to put into specific, file drawers and everything, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, right?
We do. We compartmentalize as humans. We just do.
Yeah. And so by being able to just, first of all, drop any sort of descriptive word and just have masculine and feminine, and then see it's the behaviors, toxic behaviors that they're doing, the toxic. That just felt really good to me. When you were talking, I looked down at 444. So I just wanted to throw out angel number 444 while anybody's here. So
great number.
I wanted to talk about karmic debt and patterns a little bit, and how that has played a part in your intertwinedness together as twin flames. So, and before we move on to that, I know we've been talking a lot about this for everybody who's listening out there. I'd love to get your, if you could give it a definition, because as people, we like to have, know things. What is your definition of twin flame?
A twin flame, I don't know if I can give you like a concise definition, as if, you know what I mean?
Right, like Webster's dictionary and shit.
Right. It is the new template for divine relationships, for divine partnerships.
So a lot of people that would be asked that question, if you would have asked us that question, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we would have said it is one soul divided off into two separate, one divine masculine, one divine feminine, coming together, blah, 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 blah.
Right. The romantic version of it with all the memes on Instagram.
Sure. Yeah. or Pinterest. Pinterest is good.
Right.
But the reality is that it is, we are energy that has been brought together that carries the same blueprints for the evolution of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that evolution and that rebuilding, it definitely starts with the healing and rising of your own
absolutely
alignment and your own flame. Because I agree. Like if I would have been asked 4 or 5 years ago, what does twin flame, what does that mean for me? I would have given that exact same response.
Because it's true. And it makes sense. And it helps with the visualization. but we're all divine aspects branched off from another. So it's like, what makes the twin flame couple distinct, unique in themselves, right? And but they're not any more important or any of that kind of stuff. Or challenging or anything. Soulmate, karmic, all of these different labels relationships are given. But we're all, divinely split off from source energy. So
Yes.
we are all twin flames, right? To some
Yes.
degree.
Mm-hmm.
But your unique energy blueprint, right? It's kind of like, plugging a lamp into, I don't even know. I suck at analogies. Why do you not even?
I love you so much. It's like me trying to tell a story.
Like, don't start an analogy, Una, because you will not. Yeah.
Well, here's something. Here's what I think what you're trying to say, and this is something I actually also just had a conversation about earlier today. Is that we are all quote unquote basically twin flames, because we are the all aligned with love, the love main base vibration of existence, right? And so as humans, we're all, and as different energies, we're all different expressions of that, right? Alan Watts says the universe is God playing with himself. And this is where I find that it's like basically we're the wave and the ocean, right? And when we can look at it as relationships, now I want to kind of veer into again, we go into like different labels, people understand karmic debt and all these things like that. Now, have you guys had a previous life together?
Oh yeah, we were twin brother and sisters that were adopted out into two separate families. So we experienced that separation in that life. Our kids have been different roles in our life.
We were medicine.
We did some dirty, nasty work as supposed medicine healers. But we were doing things very deceptively. And so that karma plays in here, so let's just take the babies, where we were split off, or divided as infants in that lifetime. That created that separation, that abandonment that we would be able to recognize in this life coming back together. Like, oh, you know what I mean? You're my brother, you're my sister, you're my, and feeling that intense bond of being, again, in the gestation together. And so we could recognize that in this lifetime. And then we had so much karma surrounding being proper healers in this life.
Yeah.
It became, we literally had to feel it in this life. This is a whole nother podcast, but going into, my Kundalini awakening, the shamanic initiations that I've been through, the health issues that I've had to deal with. And that's where Denny says the 150, and I could only pull a little bit. When we were in Utah and Denny was explaining that his body was going crazy and he had no idea what was going on as he was energetically catching up, that would have been his time where I was carrying everything and he was sort of following. So we had a lot of karmic debt in terms of having to go through so many initiations in this life to recognize that we were clearing debt, and this played out in our history with landlords. This played into jobs, doing people right, regardless, treating people with unconditional love regardless. And that's been such an incredible lesson for us that has been really, really hard to clear. So that karmic debt stems way back. That goes into some of our charging for our services. A lot of times we charge kind of low if spirit tells us that we're needing to remember that time where we charged inappropriately for things that were illegitimate, and that kind of stuff. So we've had a lot, and we have cleared a lot. We've cleared our landlord debt. We've cleared our financial debt, and our karmic debt, I should say. Yeah. We haven't cleared our financial debt.
And it's, I think that's just the cycle of it, right? No. And it's interesting because, Sean and I, this isn't our first life together either. And in our most recent past life, we were very, very manipulative. I myself was extremely manipulative. I was the epitome of the description of the witch wound.
Yeah.
Competition, jealousy, tearing apart, stepping on people to get whatever I wanted to get. I would
Yeah.
succeed and I would manifest quickly, but it was all through toxic behaviors. And Sean, he would go in and he would just destroy people's foundation and security. Like he didn't give a shit. Like that's what he would do. He would just go in there and just fuck shit up, and like he didn't care.
Right.
And it
Right.
was all about the money. It was always it was almost like the vibe of like being, like a mobster. You like you're going out and you're collecting, right? Like you and all that stuff like that. And so in this life, back in our old paradigm, I was able to manifest money hella quick. I was a hustler, but everything I did was from that toxic behavior and vibration and
Right.
fear. But see, Sean has always had this thing about money, which we could go into a whole nother topic as well
Right.
regarding
Right.
that. But he's always been like he's always tried to make money. He would always get either break even or just under. And really just recently over the past 2 weeks, we've had clarity onto why I've always been the one that works in our relationship. He's been a stay-at-home father, he's been the homemaker, he's the one that grows things. And so what we realized with my karmic debt, which is part of how our relationship works, is I'm supposed to be serving and helping with through the witch wound, which is the rise of Magdalens, sexual alchemy, all of these things like
Yeah.
that, and diving into my relationship with women by healing all of that. And
Right.
his is joyous structure. So his freedom comes by creating and growing the home and supporting and growing the children. And he grows cannabis, and he's always about growing and helping and like fixing instead of destroying.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Well, and it's interesting to realize that it's understanding that he no longer has to chase the money to feel this like he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. His purpose based off of his last life is to be not getting the money. The money will come to him when he focuses on that. My job is to get the money in this life.
Right.
And so it's interesting how when you can step into understanding karmic debt, which again, that can be a whole nother episode as well, all the karmic stuff
Right.
that
Right.
goes on. But how it not portrays, what's the word? Contributes to the I just keep seeing clicking. When I see a ball that clicks for something, that it's like just contributing to the alignment, to the humanity, the rebuilding. That's what I mean. That's what it is. So
Yeah. You're creating new templates for humanity that
thank you.
men can be at home, and take care of the kids and, take care of the home and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely creating a new template. And that's what twin flames do. They create new templates for relationships, for making money, for lifestyle, down to how they have sex, what's healthy, what's not, right? We create new templates and we hope to, set the stage for future generations while healing past generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's just it too, because I think what is so important about when you can recognize and work on the relationship with your flame, with your partner in this world, you are healing so much for this new generation because you are healing past, right? We're making up for the debt. So we're healing those ancient lines. We're going in and working on womb work and healing the mother wound. So we're healing mothers and grandmothers and sisters and aunts and great grandmothers, right? And the deeper healing we go, the more broader and higher healing and rising we have.
Absolutely.
And so before we move on into any other further questions, I want to say, first of all, thank you for doing the work that you are doing.
Thank you for doing the work.
Absolutely. You just wrote that down. New template for divine partnerships. I wrote that down. Okay. What is your perspective, or maybe the difference between a twin flame and a soulmate, if you could express your perspective of that, if there is a difference or if it's just different levels, and what your thoughts are on that, on soulmates and twin flames and all that, or the difference.
Yeah, and there is a difference. And again, if we asked this question 5 or 6 years ago, it would have been a little bit of a different answer.
Mm-hmm.
But there is definitely a difference. And I think the difference, I see the soulmate relationship as more of two people harmoniously supporting each other in
their soul growth.
So they can continue, so they can move on to do other things, if that makes sense. Because I believe a soulmate can be somebody that you're intimate with, but can also be somebody that is in your family, a friend of yours. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who is there to just sort of very harmoniously support you while you are doing your work. We're in a twin flame.
And also soulmates have very different work.
Yes.
So you're rarely on the same soul mission.
Gotcha.
Right.
So
but you can still support each other even though you're doing different things.
Right. And twin flames are creating templates. Soulmates aren't.
Gotcha.
Twin flames are creating new templates for humanity. So you're working toward the exact same goal.
Yes.
Constantly.
And I'll tell you,
same goal constantly.
We were about, I think, 3 years into our relationship before we learned even about the twin flame.
Yeah.
Heard that word.
Yeah, I had no idea.
So we had the benefit of going through a lot of stuff together before we even discovered the word twin flame. Then we read twin flame and what the definition, quote unquote, is, or sort of all the telltale signs. So then we were able to look back and say, oh, well, shit, that's what we are. As opposed to reading them first and saying, oh, let's try and fit ourselves into
that box.
Mold. We were already there without even knowing what it was. So I can tell you unequivocally from our experience, this is our experience, and it fits into what the twin flame mold says it does.
However,
However,
there is a lot of misinformation out there.
So much misinformation.
We can look back on some of the articles we read that actually almost made us think we weren't.
Yeah.
We're like, wow, well, we're not that. We weren't spiritually evolved already. We hadn't had an awakening already. Our Kundalini had not risen yet. We were, some will say you have to be in a certain vibrational frequency in order to attract your twin. That's a load of crap.
Yeah.
So we read a lot of different things. I mean, I studied it constantly for years and years. And I went back and forth. Maybe we're not, maybe we are. And we finally got to this point where it's like, who freaking cares? We love each other like crazy and we're changing the world together.
Yes.
End of story. So whatever that's called, that's what we are.
Twin flames are not defined by the definition. Twin flames create the definition.
God, that was beautiful. Let me write that down.
Right.
Damn.
That's been our experience.
Yes. Yeah, that is really good. Yes.
Okay. Definition. Okay. All right. I create it. Yes, that was gold. Everybody stop, rewind, and hit play to listen to that again. That was fucking gold. I love that. And I too believe that there's a big difference between twin flames and a soulmate. I believe that we have multiple different soulmates. People come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. It depends on what is happening in that particular vibration and where we're at with our journey, where we're supposed to be, where we are based off of our alignment and all that stuff like that. And so I believe even if a person comes into our life as a reflector and we believe that like this one person, she would be in my life, she would show up in my life constantly and I would get irritated and frustrated, right? So instantly I'm having resistance. Instantly I'm seeing something in her that I'm not liking within myself, right? So utilizing her as a mirror, she is a form of a soulmate for me.
Of course. Yeah.
And I think people, they have this dreamy romantic expectation of what
it totally is.
Right.
It totally is. It's the best love on the planet ever. It is extremely romantic, extremely juicy and passionate and ecstasy and erotic. And I could go on and on. It is the most amazing experience ever to have.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, are we talking about soulmates?
Well, she's talking about twin flames, but
Right,
then as
right. I
soulmate,
got confused. I'm sorry.
Okay.
yeah, no, that's okay. I knew exactly where we were going. I got this conversation under control. But no, that's exactly. It is a very dreamy thing with twin flames, when you realize it is a very sensual, and it's like you experience the you embody all of those dreamy and juicy words that you just used. But in a soulmate aspect, I feel like there's soulmates that we have that may not be the dreamy, wispy Care Bear ideology, but it could be, why do you keep showing up in my life? I can't stand to look at your face. Stop, reflect. Why does she keep showing up in my life? Why can I, stand my face? And I think that those are different versions of soulmates. And I think people can get confused and think that if someone's in their life and it's causing them resistance, that they just have to walk away. So let's veer into this a little bit, since I know we're going to be leaving here in about, we got 20 minutes still. I mean, plenty of time. When you guys start to find resistance within your own growth, or maybe do you guys find any sort of resistance with each other at times, right? Because sometimes we're not vibing, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So when you guys go through some of that resistance, maybe not resistance or not vibration, not alignment, how does that affect you in the steps and the choices and the environment of the vibration that you carry out until you, I don't want to use the word fix, but I guess align back in with each other? How does it affect you? And then how do you guys is it a quick process? Do you guys go through your own cycles of residual habits and patterns that come through first? Explain that process to me.
Yeah.
Again, if you were asking us this question
5 years ago,
3 to 5 years ago. So when we first connected, it was horrible. We would literally runner chaser, right? And I say that in quotations. I know nobody will be able to see my air quotes, but they're there. When we would go into our runner chaser dynamic, I am the runner, Denny is the chaser, which isn't really a thing. But anyways, just for the sake of conversation, I would run for days. I would be in complete solitude. I would be, fighting, arguing, pushing, resisting, questioning, doubting, all of those things. And Denny would be convincing and trying to fix it and pushing in farther and deeper and be scared and worried and freaking out that I was leaving. Right. So it was very, very toxic, and it would last for weeks. And it happened. I mean, we would have a big, huge blowout, probably at least once a week, maybe once a day. I don't know. It was very, very crazy.
Can I say that back then, my wife is the most self-aware person that you probably will ever speak to. And even before we even knew what the word self-aware meant, she was self-aware, because I remember sometimes she would text me, sometimes she would call me, and she would say, "I'm leaving." She knew it. She knew it was happening. And she would tell me, she'd say, "I'm leaving. Please know that I love you." And then shortly after that is when this pattern began.
Denny's like, "No,
I'm like,
no,
please, wait.
no."
And then all of that cycles. Now, when you would start to, when you started to realize that, all addicts, obviously we run. So when you stopped running, and you're all hairy like freaking, what's his goddamn name? See, it was supposed to be a good joke, a good analogy, but then again,
you and I have that in common.
Right? That's like how I tell stories. I can't tell stories unless I have the story right there in front of me.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump, right? When he's running, because he just felt like running. Right?
Yeah.
And then he stopped. And there was that moment of awareness. When you had that particular moment of awareness, when you stopped being the runner, how did that shift, and how fast was that quantum fold? Do you see what I'm saying? Because you aligned in with it, and then quantum physics happened, and then wormholes happened, and then we manifest, right?
So are you talking years later after
Yeah.
we got out of that dynamic?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There were turning points, right? So we got sober from drugs and alcohol. So then now we're in a new dynamic. We're learning how to be sober together. We're learning how to have sex sober. We're learning how to have conversation sober. We're learning how to just freaking function. We would make and it's important to know we were always on the same page. And it's always me.
Yeah.
Always me. I would be the one to say, we need to quit drinking, and then we quit drinking. We need to quit smoking cigarettes. We would quit smoking cigarettes. And this was for a long time. And now we have shifted where Denny is more now the one, and there's so many reasons behind why. But because we're creating balance again, right? But for so long, it was me. We need to do this. We need to be vegan. We need to change this. We need to whatever, right? I introduced Denny to the term twin flame. I introduced Denny to Reiki. I introduced, all of these things. And, it's not that Denny would just follow whatever I wanted, but it's this inner knowing that, oh, you know what? I was actually just thinking the same thing kind of thing.
Right.
But
Holy shit.
I'm sort of the initiator in our relationship. And Denny is like the what's a good analogy that keeps it going, he's like the ship,
you have the idea, and I'm go and do all the labor.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys know your human design? Do you guys know your human design at all?
Probably. I don't know by that term.
Okay. Well, there's so many, right? There's so many out there. The reason why is I just had Blair on. She was a guest, and we were just talking about human design. She teaches that, and it's basically like different chakras. Like not different. I'm totally not going to explain it properly. Google human design. There, just input like your birth date and the place and all that stuff like that. So it correlates. You can have a chart read, and you can start to read that. But there's projector, generator, manifesting generator, manifestors, and receptors. And these are different responses, and there's different authorities with these. And so how you make choices is based upon whether this vibration lines up. And so it's just another type of way to...
a modality, right?
Yeah.
For self-awareness.
Exactly. And so what I'm thinking is that, Una, you might be a projector, and then Denny, you might be a manifesting generator, because you can just go and do it. And so she'll set the course, and then you'll just go, and then you just keep going, and so you generate everything.
So to answer the original question, because I really think this is important for people, there would in the beginning there would have been a lot of times for us just to break up and never get back together. We are seeing this in relationships. We've been kind of on a relationship kick lately, where everything's a relationship and how to stick it through and when to leave and all this kind of stuff. But there was always forward growth. We never hit like a plateau. And when we did, we both acknowledged it, and we were up and running into the next thing. So to answer that original question of how rapid was it, we have literally lived like 20 lifetimes in the 10 years we've been together. It's been insane. We've had multiple different lifestyles. We have tried so many different things. We have done Christianity, Mormonism, Buddhism, Hinduism, you name it. We've dabbled in it, studied it, decided whether it resonated or not, and got the hell out if it didn't, and moved on to the next thing. And so how our resistance toward each other now looks, even 3 to 5 years ago, it would have been, maybe in a couple of nights where we're separated physically. Denny's on the couch, I'm on the bed, maybe texting each other from different rooms, still playing that wounded child, where we weren't really, sometimes you need to separate. Sometimes you need that energetic clearing. It got to a point, those things had to happen because Denny had to feel solid and secure with me not being around. And I had to be okay with needing him. And so when we came to terms with that within ourselves, that it is okay to be alone and it is okay to need, then that resistance got less and less and less, and we got more real with one another. And there's a lot of things that facilitated that, like my shamanic initiation 3 years ago, where I was in a complete state of psychosis. I was super mom, running all the errands. Denny's working 70 hours a week. I'm doing all the running back and forth with the kids. Powerhouse, cooking dinner, cleaning the house. Everything was done. Denny get home, we'd have dinner, have sex, go to bed,
Yeah.
very systematic. And I broke,
Yeah.
I was really getting really deep into my spiritual walk at the time. We were both Reiki masters. We were starting our business, Elements of the Soul. And it was awakening so much in me. It was like a simultaneous or instantaneous Kundalini awakening and a shamanic initiation. And Denny had to quit his job and he had to take care of me full time. If it wasn't for Denny, I probably would have been admitted and they'd want to throw me on a bunch of drugs and this and that. But again, that's like a whole nother story of
I'll have you back on where we can talk about shamanic training
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, because mine's begun.
Yeah. So that helped me. I had no choice. I had to break down those walls and just, this is me. Do you still love me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that trust on a new level was established and we were able to reach a deeper level of our relationship.
Yeah. The reality of all that is that like we as human beings are made to outgrow everything in our existence. We're made to outgrow each other. We're made to outgrow our environment. That's how we evolve. And so when it comes to either fighting or, debilitating shamanic initiation, if you are able to look at that as the growth that it is, that will continue forward movement.
Yeah.
And that's how we've always been with our relationship.
We've outgrown our relationship.
Yes,
a million
everything that
times.
we've been through are things that would end most people, would end most relationships, but could end most people like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we continue to find the growth and the evolution in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what brought us to where we are today.
And find each other.
Things, right.
Yes.
Always finding each other, even when one's on the couch and one's on the bed, still
connected.
Evolving.
Yes.
And then coming back together and having a conversation about what you've been thinking about for the last couple of days. And it's the exact same conversation. I've been thinking about this.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking about that exact same thing too.
Yeah.
And now we're still evolving, even though we're not in the same room, connected like that, like we normally are. We still have that energetic bond.
Our higher selves.
Yes.
Our higher selves were communicating and saying, okay, how are we going to help them? How are we going to help them heal through this? And us separating physically is what helped that. We've never separated out of the house. We've never filed for divorce, any of that kind of stuff. But separation to us is not talking for a couple hours. I mean, that's hard. You know what I mean? And so, so now today, we just had a fight last week and it lasted like half a day. Yeah. So where it would used to last days, and they were hard arguments. Oh my God, because it was ripping literally the karma out of our soul, out of our soul signature, stripping it out. Yeah. Right. So, So now it's less because we can be real and raw with one another and exposed. And it's so much better. It's so much better. But even back then it was amazing. Yeah. Yeah. It really was.
And I can only imagine because it's like everything that you're talking about when, both of you are talking and you both are saying and sharing all of this. It's like, I'm like, yeah, that, me and Sean, like he'll be in the garage and I'll be in the bedroom at night. Cause we basically have opposite schedules because he's up usually graveyard shift, watching the house and doing his plants and having his alone time and his own solitude, quiet time. And then I get up in the morning and I have my own time there and then get the kids off to school and do that. And then we have time independently and then together before the kids come home. And it's, a lot of people ask us, how can you work at home and be with your husband there all day at the same, like, how can you do that? And I'm like, he's my best friend. First of all, we have so much conversation that we could continue to have more and more conversation that would continue to explode and create more ideas of how does this conversation even expand? And then how can I even take that conversation that we had to expand into something else? And then how can I serve somebody with that? And
exactly.
It's so
never get bored of each other. We can spend every second of every day together, always.
Yeah, I have to be disciplined.
Most of the time we even shower together, use the same toothbrush, like we're the same person.
Yeah. It's so funny. I'm going to pause you right there, because this is something that Sean and I have realized too within ourselves, is that we are the same person. We're just not the same person. And it's like, for us, we're really expanding into our own, personal things. We've joined the lifestyle, since December, since New Year's. And so we've opened our relationship to what has, uh, different ideas of what we have. And just last night, working through abandonment issues, and it wasn't coming from a lover aspect, it was coming from a best friend aspect.
Yeah.
And it was working through that, and realizing that I was still having abandonment tied to the best friend term, which was then tied to him, which was 20-year relationship that I broke up with, and all these things, right? So I love that it's like things that turn him on turn me on, but for so long we were both so afraid to even share that with each other. And so as I have gone through my own awakening, I started going through my Kundalini awakening about 3 years ago myself. And then what I would describe as my cookie apocalypse is when I realized that I was actually a Magdalene. I was actually a sex priestess. Like this, like everything that I had been running from my entire life is what I am supposed to be doing.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm so grateful, and I'm thankful that you guys, both of you, have been able to, of course, connect and choose to continue to nurture that relationship, even though you could go the toxic behavior route and keep resisting and fighting and leaving each other and putting yourself in punishment and sabotage, versus going through the hard work and even the 2-hour fight or whatever, you know what I'm saying, which levels you up 12 other levels just from going with that 2-hour fight.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, you guys are just so beautiful. And I've been following you. I wanted to call you Court because that's how long I've been, like, I've known you for a while now. And I've been following your journey and following both of your growth and following the ascension and the expansion. And I've been called, and I just been continue to be pulled towards your relationships, towards your relationship, because I think of the base similarities of where I find Sean and I. And it's comforting to know that you're there, and I know that there's others out there, but I don't feel so crazy as much. I mean, I still feel crazy daily, but I feel like at least my craziness is leading to something.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So before I go and before I ask some final fun questions, because I always ask some silly fun questions, human questions at the end. What are you currently working on right now? What is your passion project that you're on? Where can people find you? How can people work with you? How can the Rising Goddess radio show help guide people towards you, so that way you can be a facilitator and shaman to help people? How can they work with you? And all of that shit I just repeated.
I think what really has come up for us lately is, we do a lot of different work, a lot of different types of different things, but our main focus, one of our main focus now that we really want to begin to move forward with, is relationships. It's just odd that this is all coming up right now, because because we do a lot of studying. We want to learn things and teach classes and put together programs and things. But when it comes right down to it, we can sit here and talk about our relationship for hours, because it doesn't take any studying. It doesn't take any extra knowledge. It just takes us sharing our experience. And what from what I've learned, that has been the most valuable thing for everybody who's been able to listen to that, is just, this is what we've been through and this is what it means to us. And that alone, just like you were saying, that now because we listened to people years ago and they said, oh, we've been through a similar thing. And it
gave us permission to keep doing what we're doing.
So right now,
we're relationship coaches. We do intuitive coaching. We have to use the word coaching here in Arkansas, even though we hate that word. We prefer counseling. But we just help show people their power. I do it through shamanic journeying and birthing. So I take people on a shamanic journey to retrieve parts of their soul that has been fractured off. And we can do that through shamanic journeying or birthing. I do chakra clearings. I don't do so much card readings anymore because I've been so tapped into source energy that I find that I just get direct messages when I tap into the person I'm working with their energy. But every now and then we'll come on live streams and do card pulls and things for people. But our main area is counseling, either individually or couples, into how to, really retrieve the parts of their souls that have been fragmented off so that they can start setting new templates themselves, helping them to discover the magic that's within them that they've just forgotten about. They just need to be reminded,
I love that. And relationships really need it, because we've branched into relationships as well, but working with relationships with couples with based more onto their sexual relationship and how to start healing their own through their sexual relationship with togethers and then independently. And so I find that right now we are in a state where relationships need help, because I think we've gone through that pendulum, right? Where it was in such this conforming, conservative type expectation of a relationship. And then it went into basically, fight the occupation, damn the man on relationships. And so now it's like people are trying to figure out how to have relationships, or how to, instead of just stopping the relationship, like they really want to learn how to work through and get to the point of having, whether they stay together or having genuine love and are able to detach from somebody from a healthy, loving place. So
I tell all of my clients, the current relationship that you're in right now, you can choose to continue to have this experience with that person, discover more about yourself, evolve, clear, and get back to 0 point, or you'll do it with the next person. It's your choice. We get to have whatever experience that we want to have. And so whatever relationship you're currently in, unless it's abusive and somebody is being harmed or hurt in any way, then stick with it. Learn the lessons that you need to. Don't move on, because you will find yourself in the exact same template until it's cleared.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's why the conversation about masculine and feminine energy is so important. And that's been a lot of my focus lately, because there's so much, with relationships now, there's so much, gender is no longer a thing like it used to be. It used to be male, female, and that's about it. Now there's a lot of different in between. So it's all about masculine, feminine energy, and a female gender. Because with Una, she's an incredibly feminine woman who has led most of her life with masculinity because she's had to. I have an incredibly masculine man who's been led most of my life with my femininity because I had to. And part of our awakening and coming together has been to discover that true masculine inside of me and that true feminine inside of her, and allow that balance to come out between us. So the conversation really is all about masculine, feminine energy, no longer male, female.
Yes.
Because it's irrelevant. It's maybe not irrelevant, but it's becoming
it's outdated.
More.
It's outdated. I fully agree. I mean, yeah. And this was actually a conversation that I was trying to get about. I mean, it kind of goes off into a veering situation, but it's more on sexual orientation and preference. But I'm working on this theory that straight or heteronormative is a construct that continues to perpetuate the father wound and shame of actually allowing a man or a woman to tap into whatever sexual desires they have, whether it's in their own masculine energy or feminine energy, depending on the gender, or no matter the gender. And so I love that. And that's a whole nother conversation that I'd love to have. But, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Social medias, websites, emails?
Elements of the Soul on Facebook. That would probably be the best, or friend request us, Una Grace. I don't know if I'm the only one, but Una Grace and then Denny McNamara. But Elements of the Soul on Facebook business page would probably be the easiest way. Yeah, for sure.
All right, awesome. Now, before I let you go, just some fun little questions, because I love being silly. What was the last thing you guys Googled? Yeah. What was the last thing you searched on Google?
You got to look on your phone. This could get quite embarrassing.
I know. This could be.
Well, you don't have to go to your incognito Google.
Oh. chicken of the woods mushrooms.
Nice. That's fantastic.
They're supposed to be coming out here pretty soon. They're like one of my favorites.
They're like the best mushrooms, and they're only here for a very short time in Arkansas. And so everybody goes out and harvests them, and every restaurant's cooking them, and everyone's got them in their homes, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And then it's like over.
Yeah, it's like cranberry season out here, right?
Yeah,
Blueberry season. It's crazy. I love that. What spiritual or maybe conscious text or audio are you into right now, if you're not currently just tapping into your own source at this moment?
Well, we're both reading. I'm reading the the multi-orgasmic woman. And Denny's reading the multi-orgasmic man.
And I need to get those books.
Definitely better at doing his exercises and, working through some of the suggestions that they have in there. I'm not so much. That's another thing about our relationship is that one of us, I'm studying my shamanism. I'm real deep into that right now. And I'm teaching Denny it, right? And so Denny is doing his multi-orgasmic man and learning how to harvest his sexual energy. And so he's teaching me that. So we're always growing, we're always learning different things and sharing them with each other. But those are the current things.
Yeah, and we almost always have a couple of books going at one time.
Right.
Yeah.
That we put it down a little bit and then we pick it back up a couple of months later and read it for a little bit longer. So there's always something happening.
I love that. And I'm just going to definitely check out those books because a lot of the exercises that I'm sure are in that book is probably what I assign as homework for a lot of men and women.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very good book.
I can't wait. Listeners out there, definitely go check out that book too. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. And then last question, what piece of music, it doesn't have to be a song, but what is currently the piece of music that you are vibrating with that just is you right now?
Gosh, I've been listening to a lot of Florence and the Machine. And Not Go and Medicine for the People. What are you listening to?
Well,
he's been listening to audiobooks.
Yeah. A song that I just love, and I just recently started listening to it again. It's called, oh my God, it's called Life on Earth by the band that does Snow Patrol.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could do a whole like half an hour segment on Snow Patrol and the music and what it's meant in my life. I'm not a huge Snow Patrol fan. It just has been one of those things.
They have some good songs.
They've always like just come into my life at the right time. And Life on Earth, a song that came out, I think it came out about a year ago.
Yeah, definitely listen to that song. It's a great song.
Yeah,
absolutely. I love it. That's why I always ask that question because I love getting different ideas of different songs. Right now it's funny because Empire Ants just came into my head, so obviously I need to go listen to that song. I usually listen to that when I'm dancing and cooking and stuff, but grooving, just closing and like flying. Where's another song too? I'll have to think. I can't think about it right now, but I'll share that with you. I'm sure you've heard of it. Do you guys watch American Dad at all?
No.
Okay. Well, then never mind. It doesn't make sense to even go down that route. So we're just gonna.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. It's funny. There's a few shows that I watch. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't have a Netflix account or anything like that. But I watch How the Universe Works. Because I'm big on everything in science. I'm science. And then anything with Guy Fieri because his voice makes it's a comfort zone to me, which is very interesting to people. And then
Guy Fieri, is that the cooking?
Yeah, he's the Triple Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives show guy. Or
he's got the bleached, spiky bleach hair.
He's my forever ska dude. But for some reason his voice just instantly sets me down. Like if I go into anxiety, 1979 by Smashing Pumpkins is a song. I woke up to that every morning of my junior year and I had deja vu every single day. So every single dream that I've had my junior year of high school has come true. So 1979 is my vibrational song. Anyways, I'll find that other song. I think you might like it if you haven't already heard it. So I'm going to let you guys go. So before I head off, everybody make sure that you share this episode. Make sure that you find Una and Denny. Make sure that you go to their Facebook page. Come also into the Rising Goddess group, and we can have more conversations on twin flames. And, just keep sharing and rising, and then facing. Lean into the vibration. When you feel this change happening, don't run, lean in. And that's it. I'm going to stop talking, and I will catch you all on the next episode. Later.